It's a pattern we've seen again and again. In the early 80s, when the first video cassette recorders came out, the movie industry tried to kill the technology because they saw it as a tool for piracy. When the first MP3 players came out in the 1990s, the music industry tried to kill the technology as a tool for piracy. YouTube is still embroiled in lawsuits with companies that see it as too much of a tool for piracy. The instinct of the industry is always to kill innovation that disrupts their business models or threatens the way they're used to doing things. Under a regime that makes it this easy to take down an entire website, there's a real risk that the next Facebook, the next YouTube gets shut down before it even really gets started.
Well, we discussed in another video censorship on the internet over adult sites. This is happening in France, it's happening in Germany, several other countries. And I did briefly mention that, yeah, it's already coming here to the United States. And this is a point where I have to say, generally, I don't recommend VPNs unless you want to see stuff overseas, stuff that's on Netflix that's not available here. But I think now these days, I think a VPN is in order as far as what's in your arsenal in your computer system if you haven't gotten one yet. Because unfortunately, where I live, the courts here are beginning censorship. And now you may say to yourself, well, it's the illegal sites. What's deeming them illegal? First, you got to ask that question on there. And some of these sites are not even US bound. Understand that as well. But we're going to read this into, this is out of Torrent Freak. Andy Maxwell, there's a US court orders every ISP in the United States to block illegal streaming sites. More than a decade after US lawmakers scuttled the controversial SOPA legislation that would require ISP to block pirate sites, a US court has demonstrated that the ability to block these sites have been available all along. Injunctions ensured in a response to lawsuits against 3 pirated streaming services required every ISP in the United States to prevent subscribers from accessing them.
No! You maniac! You blew her up! Oh, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Earlier this year, producer and cinema investor Moshe Ellie fired warning shots across the bow of MasterCard, Visa, and American Express for continuing to provide payment processing to these pirated sites. Ellie, the co-founder of Screen IL, an international TV streaming platform aimed at Israelis living abroad, said that the companies must be aware that the pirated sites are involved in criminal copyright infringement and money laundering. The suggestion was that by continuing to do business with them, the payments companies should also expect legal action against them. While that what would be the first anti-pirate enforcement, several elderly-related companies have just won 3 separate copyright lawsuits in the United States. The judgments and injunctions are not only to break new ground in the United States, but might also represent one of the most significant anti-piracy wins in the century. Last year, the companies including United King Film Distribution, DVA Satellite Services, and Hot Communications filed 3 copyright infringement lawsuits in the U.S. District Court of Southern District of New York. Each complaint the targeted specific pirate streaming site, IsraeliTV.com, Israeli.tv, and Sar.tv, and the latter being Israel's most popular pirate streaming site with millions of visitors each month. Now, you notice they're targeting mostly in Israel, which is very unusual to the extreme. At least in broad terms, the lawsuits were relatively unremarkable. They followed traditional lines by demanding $150,000 in statutory damages for every copyrighted work infringed and injuncted to prevent infringement moving forward. From the beginning, it seemed highly unlikely that the operators of these sites will turn up in court to defend themselves, meaning that a win for the plaintiffs in these cases were never really in a doubt. Late last week, the plaintiffs won all three lawsuits via default judgment. The court ordered the operators of IsraeliTV.com, Israeli TV, and Startup to each pay $7,650,000 in statutory copyright infringement damages related to 51 registered works owned by the plaintiffs. While almost $23 million in damages isn't inconsiderably amount, the injunctions handed down in all three cases are something never seen before in a TV/movie piracy case. In all three judgments, the defendants are enjoined and restrained from infringing the plaintiff's rights, including by streaming, distribution, or otherwise making any of their copyright works available to the public. They are also banned from operating their websites from existing domains or any other that they might use in the future. All pretty standard stuff so far. And then the big one. All ISPs and any other ISPs providing services in the United States shall block access to the website at any domain address known today or be used in the future by the defendants. Any technological means available on the ISP systems. Attached to each judgment is a list of the base internet providers required not only to block domains currently used by the pirate sites, but they might use them in the future. The first page is the list of ISP, but there are 9 pages totally covering 100 residential ISPs. The injunctions also clarify the list is non-exhaustive, meaning that the order also applies to ISP providing in the United States. The domain address and any newly detected websites shall be channeled in such a way that users will be unable to connect and use the websites and will be diverted by ISPs, DNN servers, to a landing page operated and controlled by the plaintiffs in the injunction to continue. It is not clear how long all the ISPs in the United States will take to comply in order, but the specific landing page is already live. So what we appear to have here is 3 substantial identical judgments and permanent injunctions that compel all ISPs in the United States to implement a whole site blocking for copyright infringement. Not only that, these are examples of so-called dynamic injunctions that are designed to adapt any anti-blocking countermeasures that the sites might deploy in the future. These injunctions exist in several other countries, but at least as far as we know, that this is the first time that copyright holders have been granted such sweeping powers in the United States. SOPA promised the whole site blocking for piracy, but a decade later, it transpires that the existing copy law was good enough already. All 3 injunctions prevent any third company, including ISP, web hosts, CDNs providers, DNS providers, domain names, advertised services, financial institutions, payment processors, etc., from doing business with these sites, current domains, or any new ones. All domains must be channeled to the landing page operated by the plaintiffs, and all companies, whether defendants hold accounts, must be located and frozen to satisfy the damages in each judgment. Any of those funds must be transferred to the plaintiff within 30 days. The plaintiffs also can conduct any additional discovery against petty much entity that they can believe to be connected to the infringing sites or their operators to access more. If the defendants don't like the court ruling, they're invited to appeal, and having avoided court thus so far, unlikely. Whether every or any ISPs in the United States will contest the injunction is currently unknown, but we can be fairly confident that if they choose not to, these 3 sites blocking injunction will not be the last in the United States. I want to tell you one thing about this. Whether it's illegal or not, let's put it to this perspective. And you're going to say, I'm going to the extreme. But it's happening. It is happening. Okay? Because there are apps on Apple and on Android that certain sites that they claim they're going to be blocking work on these sites, but these are players. And they're going after these players as well. See, the way that this went around, yes, the people that are involved in these sites didn't show up on here. The ISP companies like Verizon and AT&T and many of the others, they could turn around and sue. And I'll tell you why. Because they're being forced to shut down the ISP address of certain names. Now, if I, for example, let's put it this, for example, videojoe.com, okay? Say they're blocking that, okay? What if someone had videojoejohn.com? Are they going to block that as well, which has nothing to do with that site? Tell me that that's not going to happen. It's going to happen. Because in the court ruling, they said anything that's close to it will be blocked. Other websites will be affected by this. Websites that will have names close to it. Now, you notice they didn't go after Pirate Bay. They didn't go after a lot of the other torrent sites. Some of the anime streaming sites, they didn't go after any of those. They went specifically to Israel. Why was that? There are plenty of other streaming sites that are not in Israel, but they went for these specifically. I have to ask that question. But the other half of this problem, and this is where it comes into play. Say, for example, you have a DVD player, and you get a movie that you got illegitimately. You bought off the street for $5. Do they put software into the player that will cause it not to play that particular video? How do they determine that? How do they put that together? Think of that for that moment itself. They are censoring sites that they deem to be illegal. I could understand with the copyright infringement, it should be going a different way. But this is companies inflicting censorship. Corporations, okay? This is corporations instituting censorship in the United States of America.
There is a lot of debate in the West about the free flow of information on the internet. But in China, there is no debate. The government maintains tight control on what people inside the country can and can't see, making the World Wide Web not so wide. China runs the world's most complicated censorship machine. Many have joked that the Chinese internet is more like an intranet. It's a complex internet filtering system that China uses to block foreign websites.
You've gotten to the point where you are violating FCC regulations. This is not something that went through the FCC. Understand that. I would not be surprised if the FCC jumps in on this. The internet is an open space. What someone does is you have to go after them. Okay? You have to work with the Israeli government to find them. Blocking their access doesn't block their access to the United States, really. There are other ways of getting around it, and, go right ahead and try to stop every one of them.
The problem is that we know it's not really going to stop piracy. Anyone with a tiny bit of technological sophistication can change a couple browser settings or download a plugin that allow them to circumvent these blocks easily. In fact, the US State Department has been a big promoter of some of the very tools that can be used to do this kind of circumvention. We've recommended them as a means to get around the firewalls in oppressive regimes like China or Iran, but they can be used just as easily to get around copyright filters.
Try to stop every other VPN company from unblocking what you've blocked. Because someone else will figure out a way of getting around it. Okay? You ain't stopping the pace. You're just censoring. You are censoring the internet. And that is wrong. You want to go after the guys that on there? Then you're going to have to pay money and go there to get them. Like every other criminal element in the business. And to stop people from doing business with banks because you're calling it money laundering. See, this is the terminology. They say, oh, it's money laundering. Do you understand what the term money laundering is? Are gangs running these websites? Are drug dealers running these websites? Because basically, that's basically what it is. Have you never seen, Breaking Bad? where they bought a car wash to funnel their money in and out. You're saying money laundering, but where's the laundering? Where's the money going to?
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
What groups? You're not putting this into the rules. I mean, into the court case. You're just throwing the rule. And the thing is, Southern District of New York, you know, who's running the Southern District of New York right now? This is the same Southern District of New York who basically has gone after Trump, who has gone after reporters. And we've seen that with Project Veritas on there. And these are all illegal, what they're doing as far as on there. So I would not be surprised that these companies have gone to they didn't go to California, they didn't go to Texas, they didn't go to Florida. They went to the Southern District of New York, which they have people that they basically can trust to process this through.
We should send to the Southern District of New York, unquote. In just 24 days, Ms. Kaplan got her political favor fulfilled when the Southern District of New York approved the first of 19 secret subpoenas.
Because if someone doesn't show up to their case, they said, well, this defaulted. Well, sorry, it's defaulted, but let me tell you, it's going to happen. You're dealing with people from overseas. And the one thing about it is, this is a lawsuit to regain monies lost, according to the plaintiff. When you look at the top of the case, this is not the federal government versus Israeli TV. This is United King Film Distributors, Satellite Services, Hot Communication. This is more toward a civil case, even though it's heard in the Southern District of New York. You know, why is a case like this pushing into censorship? This is big money trying to circumvent the laws in this country. And that's dangerous. Whether you agree with me or not, whether these guys were illegal to what they did, it is still a violation of United States law. You're censoring in this country, and these companies got to stop. If they want to sue for monies, they are allowed to, not for censorship. And we'll see what happens. And we'll expect lawsuits to come out of this, right back to reverse this tragic situation that's going on.
The United States needs to be able to send a clear message to the world that we support the principle of a free, unified, open internet where no government firewalls decide which websites the citizenry is allowed to access. If we get rid of that principle, then the only difference between the United States and China is what's on the blacklist.